This lesson, we're going to be looking at building tables and some of the common tags for tables as well as attributes for tables. So let's go into our web editor and I'm going to create a brand new file. Actually, I'm going to save the index.html and I'm going to call it table.html. And I'm going to get rid of some of the stuff that we did before. So I'm just going to have the main body area and we can get rid of all of that. And for here, this is where we're going to add some table tester, and go over to table.html so that we're ready to start working and building on some tables. So tables, what they allow us to represent is some tabular data that we want to present in a two-dimensional table format with HTML. So for the table, we declare a table tag, and then the content inside is where we're going to have all of the different data that comprises rows and columns with the cells that contain the data. So the rows and the columns, they provide structure for the table. So with the table itself, so it's comprised of a number of rows and columns. So typically for the table head, we'll start out with a table head area. So this will be the first row. And then we create a row for that. And then within the row, we want to create a cell. So because this is within the table head, we're going to use the th tag. And this is the header of the table, So this is going to be our header of the table. And then now we've come to the body area of the table. So we're putting that under the t-body. So there are a number of different tags that we use in HTML in order to be able to distinguish the different table structure. So this one as well will have a row, and then within this row we're going to number of cells. So we're going to have our first cell, and maybe we want to make it a two-column table. So we're going to have to adjust this cell. We're going to have to add an attribute to it. Second cell. And then I'll also make this two row. So we'll have multiple pieces of data. And maybe this will just be a number. And this can be some text. So there we have our very basic table structure. Let's see what that looks like. So notice that the th tag bolds the content slightly. And then we also have the first cell there and the second cell. So for tables, before we used to add in attributes to provide the table borders, but so now we do that with CSS. So we do have a style sheet. So I'll show you how to do that. And also within the table, the th cell, we want to make this too wide. So we specify a col span to make it 2 columns wide. So that will go across the full width. And then within the styling itself, we can specify, here is where we can specify that we want to have the various attributes for the table. And we'll just comma separate it out and apply a border. So that will give us borders around the cells. And we can text align, so center align the text. And then we can set the width. So taking the table itself, let's set a default width for it. And we're going to set that to 400 pixels. And margin auto will center the table. So when we have our table centered, and if we want the TDs to be, so we're building a 2-column, so we want to set the width to be 50%. And that allows us to center the table and set the width to 50%. Now, of course, there's more on this with styling, and I don't want to focus too much on the styling, but that's just some basics for setting up the table. So let's set up some more table examples. So you also have really simple table examples. So if you're not including the t-head, t-body, and if you just want just a plain regular table, we can do that as well. So set up a table, and then this would be a table row, and then within the row we could have a number of TD cells. And you're going to notice that the difference really here is just how this attribute, this element has this tag has a default attribute which bolds the text, and then you can do that in styling as well. But it is better to use the table tags for accessibility purposes, and it makes it more readable and compatible with various browsers and devices, especially on mobile phones, that it's a lot more readable that way. So, and then this table itself can have multiple cells. And then I'm going to just duplicate the row just to save some time. So we'll have the same content in there. So now we've got second table. And because this one's still getting the properties of 50%, that's why we've got this skewed cell there that's kind of sitting there on itself. So that can be adjusted, or we can just leave this one out. Or we could bring it to 33%, or with the styling, we could be more specific with how wide we want the table to be. So go back to the table. I'm going to include some line breaks here, and also a horizontal row, so that we can see the two different tables, how they look like on the page. So let's go back out here, and I'll show you how you can add in and set a table row span. So what a row span is similar to the col span, where instead of going across columns, it's going to go across rows. So if I do a row span and set the row span to 2, and I'll just quote around that, just make sure that we've got a quote around that. So the next cell is not going to need that row. So now this one is taking up 2, and the other ones are on the side. And then I'll just add in one more row here at the end to complete that. So now we've got 16 cells altogether, or 12 cells altogether, but the middle one is shared, so that one has a row span. So that's where we've got the span of 2 across that one. There's also, we saw with the table head, table body, there's also a T foot that you can add in. So this allows us to do a footer. You don't really see this a whole lot, but again, it's an option that if you want to use that you have that option for the T foot. And then this is also just using the TDs. So there's no specific tag for it where there is with the head. And that's why we don't see it being used. So footer 1, and then we want to make it 2 cells, or if we want to just go col span 2, that will put the footer across entire space. And again, no special formatting is being added to that one. So with tables as well, you can add in captions, and then you can add in the caption message there. So you just get that caption area. And the caption tag must be inserted immediately after the table tag. There's also the column group. So let me duplicate this table and get rid of the caption. We're not going to need it for this one. And this one's just going to be to illustrate the column group. So it allows you to group a few columns together. So the col group specifies a group of 1 or more columns in the table formatting. So let's set that up, and that again, straight up here at the top, I'm going to put it. So col group. And then we need to specify the various columns that we have. So we've got a column, and if we want to span the column across 2, we can specify the span width of the column. So let's do a column span of 2. And the cols are used in order to apply properties to the below cells. So in this case, we're going to col span of 2. So the first 2 columns will get whatever properties that we're applying to this column, and then the last one will get whatever properties we're applying to that one. And you can do this with CSS, or you can do it within the element attribute as well as a style attribute to apply some CSS styling to it. This allows us to specify properties. So if you want to do some styling, we could do a background color here and set that to be red. And then we can also have another column, and this is just a regular one. So this is just a 1 column, so we don't have to specify it. And this one can have a background color of blue. And we'll close off the column tags. I'll show what this looks like. So that gives us the option to apply some styling and group the columns together. And this will get applied to all of the rows that are below. And of course, we can add a class here and apply styling within CSS as well for these. So go ahead and try these out and explore more of what you can do with tables.